All right, well, let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Winning Competitive Intelligence Programs. Super excited to welcome our host for today's webinar. Vijay has been in product marketing for about 15 years, and he's used Clue now, I believe, at 2 different companies, including Uniphore, where he's currently the Vice President of Product Marketing. As a 2-time customer, we've known Vijay to be very successful, specifically in generating great adoption and engagement in his CI program. So excited for him to share today his process for building a successful competitive intelligence program. Before I sort of hand it over to Vijay, just 2 quick housekeeping items. First is we will be recording this presentation, so that will be shared out in an email after today's webinar, along with, I believe, the slides themselves. And as for questions, Vijay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're good with questions sort of throughout the presentations. Typically, we'll keep most of them to the end, but if there are any breaks where you want to stop and pause for questions, Vijay, let me know, and I can share anything that's surfaced.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine with questions as we go through.
Great. And as far as where to contribute your questions, we have a chat box and we also have a Q&A box. Either of those work. Q&A might be best just so they don't get lost in any other conversation, but feel free to use the chat box to share questions or to say hello and where you're coming from today, or to share any LinkedIn profiles if you guys want to connect as sort of a community. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Vijay, and you can take it away.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks to the Clue team. It's my pleasure to share some of my perspectives on how to build winning competitive intelligence program. As Katie mentioned, my name is Vijai Shankar, Vice President Product Marketing at Uniphore. A quick 2 words about Uniphore, what we do. Uniphore, we are in the customer experience, customer service space. What we do pretty much is provide a platform to drive automation as well as conversational experiences for customer service interactions with contact centers, specifically through chatbots, through voice, and just make the agents more efficient, as well as have the customer service, the customer experience be more conversational as well as transformed. So that's a quick, I would say, a quick pitch about Uniphore. I really want to share today about my perspectives and my intelligence. Sorry, not intelligence, my experience with building winning CI programs. I should mention that CI in marketing means competitive intelligence. The reason I'm mentioning is I did see on the social media where one of the people on one of the posts promoting this webinar said CI could mean something else in engineering, and that's okay. When we talk about CI specifically for marketers, it is competitive intelligence, and I think knowing the audience, we all know what CI means. So the agenda for today is I just want to quickly share how do we define the problem. So what exactly is the problem for defining the problem when we think about building an effective CI program. As about building an effective CI program, what are the goals? What are your goals? I will share my perspectives in terms of how I define my goals specifically at 2 different locations, 2 different companies when I was responsible for really building a CI program 1.0 and then later a 2.0. Lastly is, since this is about Clue, you will find out my perspectives in terms of how we rolled out Clue at 2 different places. I will share more examples from my current company. I will also give some perspectives from my previous company where we had Clue for a longer period of time. And with the larger audience, I would not share the name of the previous place, but you can kind of pretty much guess where I would be. So let's see. Okay, so what's the problem? Problem of CI, or problem of competitive intelligence. No matter which company I've been, as I said, in product marketing for about 15 years. So no matter which company I've been, the first critical problem is the intelligence, the competitive intelligence, the competitive knowledge is normally and most frequently in the minds of a select few people. And that's just the way it is. And the select few could be salespeople, could be product people, could be product marketing people, could be executives, or could be just people who have been in the space for a long time, with the space or the company for a long time. So the thought process is they have It's viewed that they have all the knowledge and it's always in their minds, and there is no effective way to really transmit this knowledge to the people where CI really matters, which are the marketing people, because you can design better programs to drive leads, better messaging to make sure that you're differentiated if you have a better understanding of your competitors, and also the salespeople, because salespeople ultimately are the ones who will be dealing with the competitors on a day-to-day basis, and you have to win the deal. So that's the fundamental problem: is intel is in the minds of the select few, and it's difficult to actually reach the people where this intel actually would matter. Second is outdated content. Oh, this is fantastic. So because before I had Clue, we used to use battle cards in my. So the last two companies we had Clue, but before we had Clue, I would say it's more pertinent in the previous company, because when I joined here, the first thing I said is I want to have Clue, and we had the budget in place, and probably it is the easiest sales cycle for one of the salespeople at Clue, because I already used it. So in my previous company and even other companies before, the content is always outdated. So we used to have this competitive battle cards either through PowerPoint decks or through Word documents. Those were the two standard ways we used to build the battle cards. And the problem with that was two things. One is it is clearly outdated. So it is almost impossible, or I wouldn't say impossible, but very unlikely that the team responsible for updating the content would go and actually update the content on a regular basis. So most often than not, we would get pings from sales team saying, "Hey, this content is 6 months old, 9 months old, a year old. Is it still current? And what is the update process?" So I think that was a critical problem, because competition changes on a daily basis. So if you don't have a way to kind of really get all the information you need to update the competitive information, then it's going to be outdated within like tomorrow. So there was a need to make sure that how can we get all the information we need to update the content on a regular basis. So that is a big problem. The third problem was where to find. Oh, this is fun. This is I'm sure you all face this. The normal problem with salespeople is I don't know where to find the competitive intel or competitive information or the competitive battle cards. So no matter how many times you send them the latest battle cards via Word or PowerPoint, they always don't know where to find it. So you always get this frequent ping saying, "Hey, where do I find this? Do you know the latest landmines?" and so forth. So that's a big challenge. So there has to be a way for how we can enable salespeople to get the access to the information, no matter where it is, in a foolproof way. So they can never give a complaint saying they don't know where to find the battle cards. So we have to get rid of that complaint. So that is a big thing. I would also like to mention that when I say intel in the minds of the select few, most often than not, when you, especially the select few, have been in the space for a long time, um, they think it is just a generalization that they always have the latest information at the back of their heads. But most often than not, we know that things change on a daily basis. So what information they might have um, based on their years of experience in the space may not be relevant, may not be absolutely accurate and relevant today, because the competitors are constantly changing their messaging. They're also looking out for what you're trying to provide, and so forth. And the fourth one is how to access. Oh, this is again, how to access and where to find are pretty much similar, because we pretty much put the competitive battle card information either on Slack or SharePoint, any sales enablement portal, or it'll be in your desktop or laptop. How to access is salespeople might be on the road, so it's difficult for them to access this information if it is on Slack, if it's on SharePoint, and so forth. So finding a way to actually store the competitive intel in a easy to access place would really solve a lot of the problems in terms of trying to find out, trying to basically drive your success of your winning CI programs. Last thing is cumbersome and tiring. This actually still exists even today, because normally competitive intelligence is always an add-on to one particular person. Very rarely do you have a person dedicated for competitive intelligence. I actually did have one person dedicated for competitive intelligence. That is after quarters and quarters of convincing my senior management that we need to have a resource, because it's impossible for my team to take care of it otherwise, or myself. So we finally did, fund the particular position, and we are able to have it for the last few quarters in the company I was with recently. So it's cumbersome and tiring because information is always changing. How often are you actually going to religiously spend time on a daily basis to go and browse and get the latest intel what you need? So these are the, I would say, the macro problems. So when you look at the competitive intelligence, so when you're thinking about driving the success of the program, you need to first identify what the problems are, and these are pretty much the problems what you would face. So goes on. So once you've identified the problem, and if you want to deliver a winning CI program, what are the goals of the effective CI program? So first thing is we always ask about, okay, what are your objectives? Or you always ask yourself, what are your immediate objectives to solve the problem? Is the immediate objective to solve the enablement of salespeople? Is it about getting the information in their hands so that they can be more successful? Is it about access? It is about distribution. Is it about ease of updates? Is it about integration with your CRM? What exactly are your objectives? The reason why I state this out is it really helps you with your rollout program. So let me be a little bit, I'll share the example why it affects with your rollout program in a few slides. But think about what your objectives are short term for the next 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. And then you can figure out how your rollout program is going to be best suited to suit your objectives. So for example, at my current company, when I joined over here at Uniphore, so my initial objective was let's just go ahead and create the 6 or 8 battle cards, what they need in terms of the most common competitors we face. Let's ensure that we integrate with CRM right away. Let's ensure that we get all the information from the minds of the people and put that in a simple place and just enable our sales teams to use that information. So that was my initial objective. Now my objectives possibly change now because now I might moving forward. My objectives could be slightly different. It could be, okay, how do I incorporate more information? How do I get more updates in? How do I ensure that salespeople are continuously using this battle card? How do I get the feedback loop? So those are different objectives right now because you want to move beyond the initial euphoria of using the battle cards to something else. So the objectives would really help you all in terms of defining what a winning CI program is. Second is it's always important to differentiate between competitive analysis, and competitive intelligence. Those are two different things. So what do you mean by that? The first thing is normally a lot of companies do competitive analysis, which is basically analyzing what the competitors are doing and then just providing that information to the concerned people and concerned teams and think that that's intelligence. That is not intelligence. That is competitive analysis. So, for example, when my previous company I was with, uh, initially we were doing a lot of competitive analysis, such as after every quarter, we used to go into Salesforce, pull out a report of how often we are seeing certain competitors, how often are we winning against them, how often are we losing against them, and providing this information to the executive team, saying this is what we're seeing with competition. That is not intelligence, that's analysis. Intelligence is basically information, what you can get to make your sales teams a lot smarter, to make sure that they are more successful, to impact your analysis in the future. So that's very critical, very important. Same thing with marketing. You want to get all the intelligence you need so your messaging is a lot better. So you actually impact your analysis at a later time with better win rates and so forth. So think about it as differentiate between what you're trying to accomplish. Is it competitive analysis or competitive intelligence? Last thing is, I always love to say this to sales teams because I always keep telling them competitive intelligence is a two-way street. It is not a one-way street. So if something is incorrect or something is new, um, let us know. For example, today I was on a call with my head of sales in Uniphore, and we were talking about a specific objection handling. And we said, oh, how can we now use this information and add this specifically to our battle card so that sales are better prepared? So that was an information which I got from her to me this morning. Now it's up to me to go and modify the objection specifically so that it can help solve my salespeople's problems in the future. So it's very important for salespeople and marketing people and anybody else who uses your competitive intelligence to think that it's a two-way street. It is not a one-way street. So that's the only way you can get better, and you have to set that expectation right away. It's very important. So for example, yeah, so I have made that expectation very clear with my teams over here and also in the past. And so In future, nobody can come and complain to me saying, hey, this is wrong, or possibly, hey, I didn't have this information over here. The question is, okay, so why didn't you come and let me know? So that's very clear. So the third thing is finalize the ideal platform, what you would need, and then gather the information to create the battle card. So when you define your objectives, you define what you want to accomplish. If you define it's going to be a two-way street, if you define what the intelligence is going to be, then choosing a battle card, choosing a platform can easily be simple. For example, when we chose Clue at the first time, the reason we chose Clue was we were trying to move away from our battle cards from PowerPoint to, I actually got an email from Clue, or maybe I was checking online, where we actually saw the Clue battle cards and we found that format very useful. So I think I reached out to Clue at that point in time, saying, "Hey, I really like these battle cards. Tell me how we can go about it." So then obviously Clue came in position in terms of what they do, and it really kind of seemed to fit specifically what I want to accomplish. For example, it moved beyond just creating the battle cards to actually ensuring salespeople can access it at any point and any time. And they also get the latest information with the crowdsourcing. So you need to understand what your objectives are, and then the platform you select will really help. So I showed you exactly how my objectives were and how I was able to select Clue. At Uniphore, it was an easy decision for me because I'd already used it and I'd seen the success. So it's just an easy decision in terms of what platform we want to use. Once you define the platform that can best help, then the second part is obviously gathering the information, creating the battle cards, and then rolling out to sales. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of what you want to accomplish. Hey, Katie, any questions so far?
Yes, I have one question, and this goes back to your previous slide about sort of the problems and identifying problems. Martin is asking if you've seen a similar problem where teams, whether they be product or other teams, they have an appetite for CI content, but aren't fully committed to using that information on a regular basis.
Of course. I'm not sure about the sales team. In fact, every team, sales team normally are initial big consumers of CI information, but then as the time goes on, they think that they already know all the information is available and they stop using it. So it's important it's going back to your midterm objectives of seeing how you can get them excited. Similarly, with the product teams, sometimes what the product teams think is, oh, I've been in this, I've heard this a lot. It actually makes me cringe. I've been in the space for 10 years. I know what exactly every competitor is doing. Oh, really? So do you know what the latest message of company X is? Do you know that they've released this product Y? Do you know how that is different? If you question them, they seem sometimes a lot of people actually are stumped. They probably don't know what the latest messages are and so forth. So I think it goes back to my long answer to your question is, it is about how do you get that two-way communication going and how often you can do this so that they can actually use this on a more regular basis and keep themselves excited about it.
Great. And then just one other point of clarification. Do you mind explaining once more the difference between analysis and intelligence and what you mean by those?
Yeah, great. So analysis is basically looking at raw data points and then just sharing the data points. So for example, what I call classified analysis is, somebody asked me, hey, how often are you seeing competitor X in your space for the last 6 months? So it requires analysis of going to my Salesforce and checking out how often we are seeing competitor X and how often are we winning against them. Also, competitive analysis is also finding out what this competitor X has been doing and just providing the content in real form. It is no intelligence behind it. It is just providing the analysis saying, hey, this is what it is. Intelligence is mostly, okay, so what do I do with this information? So, and what is going to set my call to action to make sure that this information is useful? For example, if I'm seeing competitor X 50% of the time, and I'm winning against them 60% of the time, what can I do to make sure that I increase my win rates? So going back to my sales team and finding out, hey, how can we win more? Or why did we win in this particular deal? Why did we lose in this particular deal? What are the reasons? Are they product reasons? Are they company reasons? Or are there reasons for something else? So getting that information, that intelligence, and then articulating that back to your teams is what intelligence is. Intelligence is something which which makes us all smarter to make sure that we're better in our jobs. Hope that answers.
It did. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, so the tool which we used is obviously Clue. That's why you're here, and that's why I'm here presenting to Clue. So the way we thought about battle cards is this is actually very interesting. So when we first created our battle cards with Clue, we just created a standard battle cards based on the way we had our previous battle cards. So example, we had about we had a standard 8 or 10 sections which we created, and we just created one battle card. And then when we rolled it out to sales, everybody loved it. But then as time moved on, as time passed, what we heard from sales is that, hey, the battle cards, what we have in Clue, it's very text heavy and there's a lot of information. How do you make sure that you can actually make it more consumable for us so we can actually take the content in bite-sized concept, bite-sized information? And it's a very common problem today. I should probably blame Twitter for it because a lot of people right now, unfortunately, we have a limited, hi Mackenzie, limited information to process in our heads. So, and this is great because I think my customer success manager at Clue, I think it's Alex at that point in time. So she really came up with this newer battle card structure to kind of help us synthesize information in a much better way. So we really had multiple battle cards. We first, at my previous company, we rolled out the battle card where we help sales spot the competitor. Once they spot the competitor, how do they dismiss them quickly? So these are typically in early sales interactions where you're trying to dismiss the competitors. Most often than not, you're actually in the third bucket or the third part of the triangle over here, where it's actually support and strategy. So you actually deep into a deal, you have to provide them more information, defend against FUD, provide add in landmines. How do you provide that level of detail? And the last one, you hate to create the last one, but you have to create it, unfortunately, is the feature by feature comparison. In fact, even today I had a call saying, hey, can you give me the feature by feature comparison? I said, I'm not giving you the feature by feature comparison. That is not a way we win. We win by providing our value. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to create. So these are the 4 levels of battle card we created, or 3 levels of battle cards we created. How do you help sales dismiss the competitors early on in the conversation, a little bit deeper in the conversation, and then when it actually gets in nitty-gritty details, how do you help them over there? So that's kind of pretty much what we did with the battle cards. We took it to a next step in my current company at Uniphore, where we decided we will not create one battle card, but we will actually create 3 battle cards. So we'll do a welcome card, which is just all about the standard public information about the company. Then we would do a sales battle card, which would break it down in this structure. And then the last one would be a product battle card, which will do the feature by feature comparison and articulate the differentiators. So we felt that I think that is a much better way for us to move forward, and we actually find better coverage, better usage, because one is it's not overwhelming for the sales team, and we really use it this way. Second thing I would also like to mention over here is that when we implemented Clue at my previous company, where the initial point was just to get it into the hands of the sales reps and not really talk about CRM integration. Why was that the case? Because we were going through at that point in time, they were going through a CRM refresh, a new instance of Salesforce. So it really didn't make sense for us to do the CRM integration. So we just rolled it out that way. And then after 6 months, we rolled out the CRM integration, and then it became a lot more something new for the sales team. So we had, again, an uptick in terms of the usage. In my current company, we decided to just do it right away at the beginning. So we actually integrated with CRM. So now salespeople can actually, if they select a competitor, they can actually access the battle card straight from the CRM. They don't have to log into a new system. It's through a single sign-on. They can access the battle card and be a lot more successful. So these are ways I'm thinking I'm just providing you information is once you set your objectives of what you want to accomplish, then this tool, this particular solution is fantastic in terms of solve the problem. And this is just the battle cards. In addition to additional things about battle cards, Clue also helps you with frequent updates. It gives you the alerts, it gives you what you need, it gives you the crowdsourcing information. It helps you integrate with G2 crowd reviews, trust radius reviews. So you get more information and you can send weekly digest to your subscribers. So there's a lot more other things where people can be much more up to date with the comparative information so that they can be much more successful in their jobs and they have the information at their fingertips. So that's kind of the battle card, the tool selection, and why we decided to go with Clue. The last part is basically building how do you build a winning program. So this is all so far is we have just created the solution, we created the tool, and we enabled sales team. That is just the first step of your program. A program is just not once and done. Comparative intelligence is one thing where you have to constantly keep building on it. So that way it is always successful and you're always up to the mark. And ideally, I think you would definitely require a resource dedicated for this. It's a great for people who are looking to get into product marketing as a career. Comparative intelligence is a great job to get into because you really would learn how to look at look at the market, look at the competitors, understand how do you want to message, how do you enable sales teams. Besides creating white papers and everything else, comparative intelligence is a great way to get into product marketing and great way to kind of start a career. So at some point at Uniphore, I do plan to have a CI program, a person who can dedicatedly manage this because it's just impossible for me to manage or any of my team members to manage. So the following the rollout or sales. So once you build your battle cards, you want to decide the rollout. The rollout normally happens where you go and present to sales saying, hey, this is something nice. In my previous company, we tied it to their annual sales kickoff. In this company, I joined, I just said, we'll do it in for 6 months, 6 weeks, and we did this. So you do the rollout, everybody gets excited. You have a sales enablement program, you have a training session, you show them all the bells and whistles, how they can tag you, how they can enable that, how you are empowering them to have that two-way communication I talked about, how they can access through their mobile phones, through their CRM, um, and how do they provide information, how do they provide the feedback, how do they get the latest alerts, all the things what you would do. But the problem is you can't just do that once and forget about it, because once you do that and you forget about it, then that's it. It is going to bound, the initial excitement is going to go down over a course of time. So you have to find a way to keep the excitement level, and you've got to find a way to make sure that the problems what we talked about don't resurface with a new solution and a new tool. Reason this is extremely important. One greatest analogy I would like to use is, is with the document management systems, right? I've been at so many companies. Every company I go, we always seem to have this discussion about, hey, we need to create a new document management system. And in a year's time, whatever problems we had with the current document management system, it resurfaces. What is those? Most common thing is you'll have three versions of the same PowerPoint slide. The PowerPoint slide deck would never be updated for more than 12 months. So if you do these same mistakes, then the same thing is going to happen with comparative intelligence as well. So the first step of building a successful program is update frequently. You have to ensure that your content is updated frequently, and you have to be on top of things. You have to ensure that it's updated frequently so that people find value and relevance in its usage. And Clue does a fantastic job in terms of providing alerts, because if you log in on a daily basis, if your battle cards are more than 30 days old, it'll actually prompt you to go and check saying, hey, this is 30 days old. Can you go and actually update it or review it? So actually it forces you to go and update, and then you click say, mark as reviewed, and then that's fine, because next time a salesperson logs in, they see that this battle card has been updated just 2 days ago or a day ago. So it makes them want to come back, and because you're updating this on a frequent basis. Second is, it's very important. This is just a solution. So it's important for you as a comparative intelligence person to be on top of things. You have to monitor other channels. You have to monitor emails. You have to find out if somebody wins a deal, why are they winning a deal? Because a lot of the information sometimes is available over there. And then you have to make sure that you go and update this into your battle card so that people have the latest information. So it is also a little bit of onus on you to ensure you can do it. So ultimately, this is just a solution. It becomes more usable and more intelligent the more love we show towards it, the more amount of information we show towards it. So that's extremely important. And the third thing, which I think is extremely more important, is Clue is a great competitive intelligence enablement tool for sales reps and teams to get all the information. You can actually make it even better if you have a separate win-loss program. So if you have a win-loss program, when I say win-loss program, it's basically calling your customers after you won a deal or lost a deal, finding out exactly why did they lose a deal, or why did you lose a deal, or why did you win a deal, getting whatever intelligence you need from that, and then going and updating that back into Clue. That is huge. So I've done this differently. I've done this myself. Normally, customers don't like to speak with us, with the company people. They always like to speak with a third party. So right now, in my previous company and here, just like the way I'm a sucker for same habit. So if I like some good vendor, then I always replicate the vendor, so it's easier for me to manage. So I have the same vendor who actually helped me with the win loss program in the previous place, where we actually go and interview with a third party, and we get all the insights we need from a sales process standpoint, messaging standpoint, product standpoint. Whatever insights we get, we immediately go and put this back into the system. So we're actually enabling our sales team, saying, "Hey, we won a deal at company X, and we did a win loss interview. The top three reasons we want a deal are A, B, C." Fantastic. It's very current, it's more relevant, and it's absolutely hits the spot directly. You can actually start trending. The reason why this win-loss program and adding that information, insights into Clue is more useful is sometimes what happens, we always tend to have success stories which are 6 months old, 9 months old. It's the same old success stories, same old, I would say, marketing information. What are the challenges? What are the solution? What are the benefits? It gets boring after a while. Salespeople are more interested in saying, okay, so I had a situation at company X, and this is the competitor I was going against, and this was the reason why my sales team member from another team or my colleague was able to actually win because of saying A, B, C, three things. You can actually use that. That is much more valuable for salespeople because they're actually it's a live defense or live, I would say, offense for them in a specific sales situation. So I would definitely encourage complementing your clue program with a win-loss program. That's when you're again adding on to the intelligence what's required. You still need to perform analysis of users and trends. So one of the best things I like about Clue also is they really help me with the ROI impact analysis and user analysis. So you actually get information on how are your users using your battle cards, who's logging on the most, what battle cards are they logging on to, how are they searching for it, which company battle cards are the most often used. You get all the details of what you want. So it gives you great insights because you always have to defend marketing spend, right? Marketing spend is something we marketers have a hard time getting marketing spend because we are a cost center. We're always viewed as a cost center, not an investment center, like engineering a product. So if you get this information, you can actually go and tell your sales management, marketing management that this is how the users have been using and so forth. A great thing, which we are just going to get started with Uniphore as well, but we did that in the previous company, is the ROI impact analysis. So you can actually work with Clue to get all the data from your CRM system in the last 3 months or 6 months, and actually do a proper mapping of, okay, how many deals were closed, how many deals were closed where Clue was actually used, and then what was the impact of it? Did it reduce your deal cycle times? Did it increase your decrease your discount ratios? All those information what you need, and then you actually have an ROI number associated with it. Now it's not exactly apples and apples in 100%. I will make sure that is the case, but it is still a great way to articulate the value of the solution to your management team, because it like can force the management team to go to the sales reps and saying, hey, this may not be a 100% direct correlation, but you still have a positive impact into your ROI. So that is a fantastic thing, which we did in my previous company religiously every quarter, and we're just getting that process started over here. The data should be available. We would be sharing the data in the next couple of days, and then we would do the impact analysis over here as well. Last thing is obviously trend line, win rate, quarter over quarter. I mean, it depends on the industry you are in. I'm in a space right now, we are selling to enterprise companies. So we don't have like 100 deals a quarter to go and analyze. We might have 10 deals a quarter. So it's slightly different, but it's still good to trend line the win rates on a quarterly basis to see whether you're successful in your job. The last thing is feedback. As with anything, it's always good to get feedback. So how do you get feedback? It's extremely crucial to get sales feedback. I talked about better usability in my previous company. We initially created battle cards, which was like proper text and so much of text. And I mean, it is kind of overwhelming to salespeople, especially new reps, to kind of learn so much information. So the feedback we got is how can we make it usable? So again, worked with our customer success person to break it down into bite-sized information with links and everything else. So it became a lot more usable and a lot more readable for our sales teams to when they're using the information. It's very important to make Clue the single source of truth. That's extremely important. There is no point having Clue as your competitive intelligence repository, and then starting to store information on Slack and all the other places, then you're defeating the purpose right away. Uh, so we actually did a pretty good job in my previous company, which is a lot bigger company, as well as in my current company, where we're saying, hey, any competitive intelligence, please send it to this particular person, and please use Clue. No having separate files on different systems and creating a mess about it. So it just makes life hard, and then you're defeating the purpose. The last thing is, yeah. So again, keep readability and usability of cards. That's extremely important. It's an ongoing process. It is never a one and done job. So it's something which you have to keep doing. And Clue has frequent updates on a regular basis. So it's easier to edit right now. When I first joined, editing was, I mean, it is a little bit challenging. Let me put it that way. But it's a lot easier right now, and I'm just finding it so easy to edit. It's also easy to really make sure what you want visible to curators, what you want visible to admins and so forth. You can actually do group level views and so forth. One thing I forgot to mention is when you integrate with your CRM system, you can actually start pulling out your win rates directly with Clue. So it actually saved my life. I didn't have to do it manually on Excel, and actually with Clue, I was able to get my win rates directly. But the flip side to that is that information you don't want every person in your sales team to have access to. Yeah, you want the win rates to be visible only for the executives. And that's where Clue's, I think, personal level access control, what they just rolled out, really is useful. The reason being, once a sales rep sees how they're winning only 20% of the deals, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to them in terms of why they're not closing deals. So that is a great thing. The win rate was really helpful as well. So closing thoughts. It was my easiest justification for marketing spend. It really easy in this company. Joined and we had the marketing spend done. Really easy to kind of get this spend done over here. I'm sure the sales person who actually helped me in both places, she would agree that this is the easiest sale for her as well. It's really it's a great way. I think it's really silly for companies, especially larger companies, to still be doing competitive intelligence the way it was done 15 years back. It is absolutely silly right now because companies are becoming larger, people are being more and more remote, and then how do you basically get this information? It's just kind of silly. Um, it's very important. Again, I talked about it. It's ease of access, ease of update, ease of distribution of CI information. That's what made us choose Glue, and we love it so far. It aids in the competitive analysis as well. I talked about the win rate just now. Always important to have a feedback loop open for continuous improvement. So it's important to have a communication on a frequent basis. I haven't done it yet with my team, but that's something which I plan to do is a communication to see how the success is and then redefine success criteria going forward into the future. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes, we have a few. I want to start with a couple of slides ago, you spoke about your own team and thinking about when would be the right time to resource for a full-time CI person. Chintan is asking, what's a good threshold to set up a process around CI? Is it the count of deals, the size of your team? Is there a sign, like for example, too much information to manage, that clearly indicates it's time to set up a CI program?
It's all of the above. I think, but the most important thing, which I mean, who asked this question? Katie?
Chintan is the name?
Chintan. Okay. The most
Yep.
important thing, Chintan, probably you didn't mention is it's what are your company goals as far as revenue is concerned. If your company is going to be growing at 10% year over year, and you're asking for CI program investment marketing spend, good luck finding the dollars for it. But if your company is growing at 30%, 40%, 100%, 200% year over year, then this is the easiest spend you can get because you need this information at your fingertips and you need an easier way to do it because that way you can actually go and do something else which is more impactful for the company. So I would say all of what you mentioned, but the most important thing which you missed out is definitely the revenue goals of your company because that's going to drive everything else what you need.
Great. And then a kind of a follow-up question in terms of how you manage team and resourcing. How does the day-to-day work split between teams? So who uses the ref data to create positioning or win stories, et cetera? How many people use Clue in your company?
So In my current company, I think we have about 40 users, I think. And right now I'm in the process of building a team. So it's mostly me. So I'm not giving in all the love I would like to give. Because I have other things to take care of in my role. Um, so, but I'll give you the example from my previous company, which is more pertinent. So initially, my team was, I think, a team of 4, including myself. And so the individual product marketing managers were responsible for competitors in their space, and they were going ahead and managing the battle card information and the clue information. So again, probably I would say they were spending about, I mean, I was asking them to spend about 15% of their time a week to kind of do this, but they were probably spending 15% in a month. So obviously, so there were issues where we were having, we were delays in terms of getting latest information. So I talked about company revenue goals. So the company revenue goals we had were pretty aggressive. So eventually, I think we were able to make a justification that, hey, we have to grow this fast. How do we increase the deal velocity? How do we increase the win rates? And then we were able to get a justification for a spend. And then we got a resource, and we were able to do an internal transfer from the lead gen team. So it was great because you're moving away from calling reps to actually doing something. So in terms of the time they spent, they were actually having this guy on the team was actually very useful because he was able to keep the alerts in good shape. He was able to ensure that the data, the positioning, everything was done into a good shape. He was able to have more dedicated calls with the salespeople, even just a normal corridor conversation or coffee conversation, and update that information. He was able to ensure that people were using the information more frequently. He is also able to kind of really take up, spend most of his time and drive that level of information. So I think definitely having a resource would help.
Great. I have another question from Barbara. To what extent, and actually you have a good perspective on this having used Clue, there's a couple of Clue related questions here. To what extent can the process of collecting CI via Clue be automated?
Um, it's quite a bit, right? Because you get all the latest alerts, you get all the latest information, what the companies are doing in central places, all the G2 review information, and you can just automate that process and then just go through your alerts and fix the process. There are still some amount of manual work to be done because Clue it's a tool, but it does not know what your positioning of your company is vis-a-vis competition. So don't expect the solution to take care of it. You have to go and manually make sure that the positioning, the battle cards, the landmines are entered on your own. So it is just because obviously that's asking for too much if you expect a solution to know what your positioning of your company is vis-a-vis competitors. So, but as far as crowdsourcing the information, all that is automated. So that's a huge help because you can then just sift through the articles, see the changes in the company website, web pages, and then take it from there.
Great. Another question, how were you able to prove that Clue increased win rates, or your CI program maybe? What direct measure did you have in place to prove that Clue was the reason?
So as I said, we were able to track win rates through Clue through our Salesforce. So there was giving you anecdotal information on win rates. We did the ROI impact analysis. So Clue has a pretty good structure to get the data what you need, and then they would actually map the users with specific opportunities with the usage of Clue during that time when the opportunity was open, and to kind of get a correlation. So I think it's not a 100% I would say direct correlation, but it's a pretty good leading indicator or anecdotal indicator in terms of the impact of Clue with with helping winning win rates. Also, I think I should mention that again, having the win-loss program will also help because that information gets fed in as well.
Another question about your win-loss program, actually. When you say, this is from Martin, when you say you use a third party for a win-loss interview, can you tell me more about that? Somebody you pay outside your org to ask stock questions, or how does that work? Do you use incentives to encourage a response from lost customers?
No, so it's a third party vendor, and I worked with this vendor at 2 places again. You just have a contract. You decide based on the deal volume how many interviews you want to get done. So my previous company, we actually started on a trial basis with 5, then went to 25, and then went to 40 at the time I left. Because 40 is a good sample size. You can't obviously interview all your wins and losses, so it's unrealistic. But based on the deal volume, I think 40 was a good number for us. In my current company, we're doing a trial for 5 until the end of this year. So end of our fiscal year, which is March 31st. So the way it works is you agree on what your win-loss rate is, and you sign a contract. You pay the vendor. The vendor takes care of interacting with the customer, with the prospect. You have to provide the customer contact information, and the vendor takes care of incentivizing the prospect or the customer to respond to an interview. So obviously, don't expect a lot of customers to respond. Some customers don't, but some customers do. You see better rates, obviously, with as you go larger companies, you see better rates. You work with the vendor to define the questions. It is not a set of standard, what I call general marketing bleep questions, BS questions. It's more relevant into what you're trying to accomplish. So you actually work on the questions. And typically the way we do it is the way I do it is I try to get sales process questions, find out how the salesperson was, how effective the demo was. So we get those sales process questions and sales communication questions in, marketing messaging questions in, to make sure that the company knew about us, whether our messages were useful and so forth. Product questions, very important. Pricing questions, very important. So we used to cover all the entire spectrum. This particular company does a great job not going like a robot, going question A, B, C, D, E, but rather they make it conversational. So if a customer says, well, I didn't buy this company because they were 20% more expensive. So that guy will say 20% more expensive in services or product. How are they ballpark? So you get more detailed that way to make it more conversational and more relevant. And then you get the full transcript of the interview with the key takeaways, and then you use that key takeaways. You don't upload the entire interview into Clue, but the key takeaways into Clue.
Great. I have a question from Laura. If you don't have budget for this, assuming a CI platform, what's the best advice on maintaining all of your CI info manually? A second part to that question that I might add, specifically since you have experience in this, is what is your advice on how to build a business case around getting budget for a CI platform?
Oh, okay, you actually answered the first part of the question. The first part of the question is if you're trying to do it manually, then you will not succeed. I'm just going to be brutally honest. So you probably need to build a case for the business one, which is the second case. Second case, easiest way is, just share some of the material what you get from Clue. I mean, they have a pretty good landscape, a lot of good white papers in terms of what you need. It's about basically going and articulating the time you would take, the problems you would face, and then going and saying how this particular solution would actually help solve your problem. So let's see. As I said, if your company is interested in growing fast, and if there is a lot of information, it's a challenge getting the information. It's a very easy spend in terms of justifying what you want to do, but you just have to make a business case saying, hey, we want to grow at 50% or 50% of the next year. Here's a current problem. Here's where we can help. And doing this will actually help us be more successful, and we can actually do additional projects which you would not do otherwise because of this. You always have to articulate the pain to get the justification. Let me put it that way.
That's very helpful. Two more questions, and then I think we'll be able to wrap up here. How does Clue, this will be interesting. How does Clue differentiate between global and regions? Is there application designed specifically for regional markets and local languages? I don't know if you have an answer for that.
No, I don't think so. In fact, I'm right now using Clue for, I have some Japanese customer competitors. I mean, you can set up groups and everything saying that, okay, these are APAC competitors and these are Europe and these are North America. You can set up groups and organize your companies by group. So that's one way. I don't think they have different language support unless you want to copy and paste. I don't think that's a product question for Clue, not for me. But
I think you're right.
I think, yeah, so.
Okay, here's one. Most of the tenured reps at my company have already competed against our competitors in their deals. Then a newer rep comes in and they end up making the same mistakes over and over. How do you recommend I share these stories with the rest of the sales team so they can stay a step ahead of the game with what works against a competitor?
So yeah, the easy answer, right? So all your tenured reps in your sales team, ask them what's the latest message about the competitor X they're going after. I can almost guarantee that they would not know what the latest message is. They probably would have an anecdotal information from their tenure. Second is a rep A would have different insights from rep B. So you can try to find out saying, hey, do you know that this particular rep closed this deal because of ABC reasons, and did you know that? Most often you'll say, yeah, maybe I knew it, but maybe not to the level of detail what you need. So I think the easiest way to get this is it is just not about what the tenured rep knows. They can always learn from the other person. Sometimes salespeople are a bit stubborn, thinking that they know everything, but I think it's good to let them know that they can always continue learning and improve their deal cycles.
Great. Okay. Final question. My company, this is from Joanna. My company is considering Clue for our CI platform. Do you have any advice for new users?
Goes back to what are your objectives, right? So what do you want to accomplish in the immediate term? What do you want to accomplish in the midterm? And what do you want to accomplish in the long term? So define your success metrics that way. Definitely work with the customer success team of Clue to build the battle cards the right way. And then definitely make sure that you have a nice, proper sales enablement session with your sales team once that is done.
Great. That's all the questions. Thank you so much for your time today, Vijay. And thank you everyone who's participated in this. This has been a great session. And we will send out the recording today, likely, if not tomorrow. So thank you again for participating in this, Vijay. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks everyone for joining for your time.
Awesome. Great.